Thailand and Cambodia, two ancient Southeast Asian kingdoms, share a border that winds for hundreds of kilometers through dense jungles, crumbling ancient temples, and clusters of villages. This border is not just a line on a map. It is a living, breathing region where the histories and destinies of two nations are deeply intertwined. The landscape itself is lush and mysterious, filled with echoes of the past and the daily rhythms of people who call both sides home. For generations, families have lived along this border, sharing language, food, and traditions. Markets bustle with traders from both countries, and festivals often spill across the invisible line, blurring the boundaries between Thai and Cambodian culture. Many people here have relatives on both sides, and their lives are woven together by shared memories and customs. Yet, beneath this surface of harmony, the border has also been a source of tension and uncertainty. Patrols and checkpoints remind everyone that this is a place where national interests collide and where suspicion can sometimes overshadow friendship. The roots of this conflict stretch back to colonial times, when foreign powers drew borders with little regard for the people living here. The maps used to define the boundary were often imprecise, and Thailand has long disputed the legitimacy of these colonial-era lines. As a result, there are areas along the border that both nations claim as their own, fueling a sense of injustice and rivalry. Many of these disputed zones are home to historic temples and ancient ruins, places that are sacred to both Thais and Cambodians. What should be shared heritage has instead become a source of bitter disagreement, with each side determined to protect what they see as rightfully theirs. Over the years, these disagreements have simmered, sometimes erupting into heated arguments between villagers or even brief skirmishes between soldiers. The tension never fully disappears. It lingers, waiting for a spark to ignite it once again. As we turn our attention to the events of 2025, it's important to remember that this conflict did not appear overnight. It is the result of decades, if not centuries, of unresolved disputes, misunderstandings, and competing claims, all layered atop one another like the pages of an old, dusty archive. The once peaceful borderlands, where neighbors once celebrated together, were about to become the stage for a destructive new chapter, one that would test the resilience of both nations and the people who live between them. The 2025 conflict was triggered by a series of escalating incidents. In May, a deadly skirmish killed a Cambodian soldier, raising tensions. Cambodia took the dispute to the International Court of Justice, but Thailand rejected outside involvement, deepening the stalemate. In July, a landmine explosion in Thailand injured several soldiers. Thailand blamed Cambodia, which denied responsibility. Diplomatic ties broke down. Ambassadors were recalled and expelled. With communications severed, the border became a powder keg. Leaders on both sides rallied their people, blaming each other. The stage was set for open conflict. On July 24, 2025, the fragile peace that had held for months was suddenly and violently shattered. Without warning, gunfire erupted along the tense border, echoing across the landscape and sending shockwaves through nearby villages. What began as isolated rifle shots quickly escalated into a sprawling conflict, stretching over 200 kilometers. Within hours, the fighting intensified, with both sides unleashing artillery barrages and rocket fire, transforming the border into a chaotic war zone. In a dramatic turn, the Royal Thai Air Force launched a powerful F-16 airstrike on Cambodian positions, marking a significant and dangerous escalation in the conflict. The fighting raged at multiple points along the border, with both armies deploying tanks, heavy weapons, and waves of soldiers. The thunder of explosions and the rattle of gunfire filled the air, as neither side showed signs of backing down. Explosions lit up the night sky, turning once peaceful villages and fertile fields into devastated war zones. Homes and crops were destroyed in moments, leaving civilians caught in the crossfire. Soldiers on both sides fought fiercely, determined to hold their ground. But as the hours passed, chaos and destruction spread rapidly, leaving behind a trail of shattered buildings and broken lives. In less than a single day, what started as a small border skirmish had exploded into a full-scale battle, drawing in thousands of troops and heavy machinery. The scale of destruction was staggering. This was the most violent outbreak the region had seen in over a decade, leaving entire communities in ruins and families displaced. As the fighting continued, it became clear that the consequences would soon reach far beyond the front lines, threatening to destabilize the entire region and change countless lives forever. The war's true victims were the civilians. By July 25th, at least 14 people were dead, mostly civilians, including an 8-year-old boy. Over 40,000 Thais fled their homes, seeking shelter in schools and temples. A hospital in Surin province was hit by shelling, condemned as a war crime. Nowhere was safe. Fear and chaos spread. Cambodia's casualties and displacement were unreported, but suffering was on both sides. The war's legacy was not victory, but shattered lives and families on both sides of the border. This is the real cost of conflict. The war erupted amid political crisis in Thailand. Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra was suspended, leaving an acting leader to manage the conflict. Her suspension was linked to a leaked call with Cambodia's Hun Sen, fueling accusations of weakness and deepening political divides. In Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Manet used the conflict to rally national unity and accused Thailand of aggression. The war became a tool in domestic power struggles for both countries. Political instability in Thailand and strong rhetoric in Cambodia shaped the conflict's course. Leaders' decisions now defined both the war and their own futures. The world quickly took notice as fighting escalated, with headlines flashing across every major news outlet. Cambodia called for an emergency UN Security Council meeting, putting global pressure on both sides to seek a peaceful solution. The US, China, and regional powers urged restraint and offered to mediate, emphasizing the need for dialogue over confrontation. Economic retaliation followed. Borders closed, trade halted, and cultural ties cut, deepening the sense of uncertainty across the region. The conflict now threatened regional stability and economies, sending shockwaves through financial markets and local communities. International diplomacy raced to prevent further escalation, with urgent calls and meetings happening around the clock. The world watched, hoping for peace before the crisis spread any further and affected even more lives. The 2025 conflict between Thailand and Cambodia is not just a sudden eruption, but the latest chapter in a story that stretches back over 100 years. The roots of today's tensions are tangled in the legacy of colonial-era maps, drawn by foreign powers with little regard for the people who lived along these borders. These lines, etched in ink long ago, continue to shape the destinies of millions. At the heart of the dispute lies the ancient Preah Vihear temple, perched dramatically on a cliff. For generations, this sacred site has been claimed by both nations, its stones bearing witness to shifting allegiances and national aspirations. The temple is more than just a monument. It is a symbol of identity, pride, and the deep emotional ties that bind people to their land. For many, these contested sites are not just relics of the past, but living symbols of national pride and sovereignty. The emotional weight they carry makes compromise feel like a betrayal, and every negotiation is fraught with the pain of history. The scars of past clashes, such as the violent confrontations in 2011, are still fresh in the memories of those who live near the border. These moments remind us how quickly old wounds can reopen, and how easily history can be used to justify new violence. As of July 25th, the situation remains tense and unpredictable. Anger and mistrust simmer on both sides, fueled by rumors, memories, and the fear that the future may bring more suffering. Families are divided, and communities live in uncertainty, hoping for peace but bracing for the worst. Yet, amid the uncertainty, there are voices calling for calm. International organizations and neighboring countries urge restraint, offering to mediate and help both sides find common ground. These calls for peace are a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always a chance to step back from the brink. The hope is that leaders will choose dialogue over destruction, and that the courage to talk will outweigh the impulse to fight. True leadership is shown not in battle, but in the willingness to listen, to understand, and to seek solutions that honor both nations' histories. Imagine a future where the border is not a line of division, but a place of meeting and reconciliation, where people from both sides can cross freely, share stories, and build new memories together, where the land that once divided becomes a bridge for peace. The people of Thailand and Cambodia are bound by more than just geography. They share a rich tapestry of history, culture, and dreams for a better future. It is these connections, often overlooked in times of conflict, that hold the greatest promise for lasting peace. Achieving lasting peace will not be easy. It will require courage to face the past, honesty to acknowledge old wounds, and a willingness to heal together. But if both nations can find the strength to move forward, the border may one day be remembered not as a scar, but as a place where hope triumphed over history.